Okay, apparently we're live and you're watching and hopefully listening to CTV. The series is officially entitled Oh Say Can You See? And for 22 years, almost, in 2 more weeks, it will have been brought to you by the Society for Economic Equality, which was founded perhaps 25 years ago. And then after being founded by Frank Girard and some of his friends, after being summarily expelled from the American Socialist Labor Party, I believe. Is that correct?
Socialist Labor Party.
The Socialist Labor Party of the United States. They were expelled for raising a political point of order or something, and so rather than becoming inactive, they became their own independent group in Grand Rapids. 3 or 4 years after that founding, Frank Girard and some of his friends, including myself, who by then had become a member of the Society for Economic Equality, started this television show, Oh Say Can You See? And so that's the C part of C. I guess, yeah, for me, being Oh Say Can You See, which we shortened also to CTV as an organization, I think that for me, the show was a way of documenting, presenting documents and discussing them. So not only was it a show that was a discussion among people in the group and people outside of the group coming in as guests, but it was, I think, in my mind, a place to examine the medium itself, to look at TV and what we could tell about society from TV, and then discuss that in light of some of these ideas of social economic equality. So the Society for Economic Equality, the founding organization, was not officially a socialist group, but our founder, Frank Girard, was a socialist. He ran for office. He ran for U.S. Congress, I believe, several times. He even debated against Ford here on TV. I hear the debate didn't go all that well in terms of the. I guess I did hear that from a friend of ours that there were moments where it became a bit overwhelming, and the founder of our organization looked a little bit like a deer caught in the headlights. But he did run against Gerald R. Ford. Other than that, it seemed to be, I think, pretty uncontested, wasn't it? So that was quite a moment and a claim to fame, and also founding our organization. And this show, I think, is a testament to the organization that he established. He passed away in 2003, and amazingly enough, this is 2017, and this show continues. It's been operating since 1995, and like I said, to me, the TV element and the CTV, I think I was steering in a direction of presenting documents from television itself, from the verifiable reality of C-SPAN, some news reports, sometimes independently gathered materials, and saying, look, this is something to discuss, because often, when we would discuss without documents that we could refer to, people would dispute, any position that we would come up with kind of out of hand. And so I always found that something that could lend some weight to what we do. So that's part of my version of the past of CTV. I think for me it was always an opportunity to not only oppose especially the economic and politics themselves are always economic, to oppose the economic political power structure and the direction that it was taking, which in these years saw the destruction of the American middle class. I think remarkably at this point, considering where we started in 1995, I think it's undisputable that the so-called American dream is, for most citizens of the United States, and certainly for the majority of children growing up in the United States today, is an empty myth. It's no longer, one of the most powerful and, in a way, real myths of American history was that there was social mobility, that there was a way up out of poverty, and that overall the state of society improved over time. And since Ronald Reagan, and since the sorts of changes in society that drove C and CTV to gel and come together came into force with Reagan and with his vice president and then President Bush, and everything that we've seen down to this point, the changes in society are now undeniably negative, and they've started with and continued along the lines of the sorts of things that we were opposing from the very beginning. And so that's, I guess, my version of the past of CTV. And I would ask my panelist, Bobby Gilbert, who's been with the group not since the beginning, but for about the past 17 years of the past 22 years, or 16 years, I should say, what her understanding of the past of CTV is and what CTV has meant to her, how she's seen it up to this point.
Sure. Well, when I started, we were a much bigger group, first of all. But 22 years ago, when you all started it, TV was a big part. I was actually just graduating from high school at that time, and TV was a big part of society. Everyone was watching TV. It was where you got your main news. People were talking about newspapers and magazines going away, and that you weren't going to see them anymore because you would just watch TV and get everything you know. Well, there's one thing about TV that is a little bit different, and you were mentioning this earlier, is that when you watch something on TV, you see it and then it's gone. You don't have a record of it to go back to later. And that's one thing that CTV could always do, is take the old footage, rewatch it, then have a platform to discuss it amongst ourselves, and hopefully callers would call in and we get a good idea of what we think is going on based on what that roll-in would be, albeit C-SPAN or even some other controversial thing that's going on that wouldn't necessarily be government, but it would be socially related. That's what I remember from the beginning. But the TV part of it, I think, is slowing down quite a bit in our society, and we all look to the internet now. And there are videos on the internet, but it's different. I don't know how to explain it, but you can more pinpoint what you want to find exactly, and it's more catered to different people, or to the variety, where when you would watch something on TV, it would be more of an en masse type thing. It would be catered, if that's the right word, or focused on making everybody happy while they watch it. And rather than now, when you go on the internet, it's more focused to a different group, like women or men or children or left or right or centrist or gay, straight, or whatever. Every single show, all you have to do is type in usually about 3 words, and you'll get a whole bunch of videos that will be exactly catered to what you are looking for. And so that it's kind of a bad thing, because now we're not seeing the other side of everything. We're only seeing the one side of it we want to view. And I know that our group is mostly focused on left, but you got to know the other side to know where you stand in your side. And I always thought CTV was a good place to, I remember when I first became a member that I was like, what are the qualifications? And it was like, well, anywhere left of center. And it was like, oh, okay, I think I fit in there pretty well. And TV-wise, it was just always really nice to listen to the group and get everyone's point of view. Even though we were all supposedly left of center, everybody had a different idea of what they thought left was, and that was a good, just a good variety or mix, I don't know what the right word is, of what left is. But now if you want to go, and you can pick exactly what part of left you want to be. Yeah, it's just, I always thought CTV was really, really good about that.
Well, in terms of using sources from TV as documents to discuss, I myself almost always brought in stuff that was maybe from C-SPAN, or maybe from a clip from Fox News or something that was people on the right talking, and they would be talking among themselves. And so I would take the time and have the patience to view this stuff, and then put together clips of what they were actually saying, which was astounding stuff. They wanted to privatize the schools, they wanted to privatize the military, they wanted to privatize the water supply. There were so many things that they wanted to privatize or make commercial that shouldn't be commercial. And they were plotting among themselves great, shifts and alterations in society that, like the offshoring, the whole outsourcing things. They would have conferences about this, and you could go to C-SPAN, you could take a piece of it, and then plug it into CTV, and we might even watch 15 minutes of it in an hour show format. And it was just amazing material. And the thing about our current situation at this point is, I think maybe a lot of people aren't even interested in seeing people present detailed opinions on the other side and then talk about it.
Nobody's really interested in listening to the other side, in my opinion. They only want to hear their side. If you're pro whatever, you want to hear more about that status and what more people are talking about. If you're pro guns, you want to hear more about why do we have to have guns? This is why we have to have guns, so we can protect ourselves, and so the government doesn't take us over. And then they hear other things. Well, they're going to take away our guns, and so we have to stock up on food and supplies and become some kind of a militia. And so they keep looking more and more into their part of it and how they're going to fix it so that they can get exactly what they want,
so
instead of listening to the other side. No, why are they taking away our guns? That's probably what they should really be listening for, is why am I worried that they're going to take away my guns?
Yeah, well, I still find myself very interested in understanding the other side. And it's only having this discussion and thinking about the changes in TV and society, where things have really split so far apart, that I realize that this is becoming an unusual conversation to really talk about the opinions of the other people rather than that they're crazy.
I have lots to add.
But before we ask Cindy what she thinks, Cindy, our other panelist and member of our CTV Society, I think I would like to say that even though I've talked about CTV as TV and documentation and this kind of discussion based on, these, as we call them, roll-ins, people might call them film clips or whatever, that's something that's becoming, is something that we're really not doing by policy recently at CTV, because and maybe we have to tweak this to find a happy medium, but many of our shows have been taken down by YouTube. Since Google acquired YouTube, fair use has come to actually mean this very strict U.S. Supreme Court definition of no more than 30 seconds, which is ridiculous. I mean, by doing that, you essentially end the ability to do film reviews or to do cultural commentary on video, on television, because you really can't do much with 30 seconds. And I think that's the point. And it's the Republican, very right-leaning U.S. Supreme Court that brought all that into play and has changed the media landscape quite drastically. And the changes in viewership, the movement away from television, people going to their internet connection for viewing has really changed the audience, and the situation of CTV, of S.E.E. as an organization with a TV show, because the people aren't, since people don't have cable TV, they're not watching CTV, and if YouTube is pulling down our shows because they're saying that we violate fair use doctrine, even though it's completely non-commercial, so it seems like an arguable thing. That has changed the situation quite a bit also. And Cindy Hicks, how do you see what are your opinions about the past and current state of CTV and the audience and the media landscape?
Well, I think as far as the past goes, people have been very limited in what you could view or what was even available to you. Hearing different concepts on either the conservative right ends or very progressive to left, it was very difficult to see any type of media like that 20 years ago. I mean, it was, you were lucky. You had like 7 channels on your TV, maybe, back the antenna days. So, I think it was great in the fact that a lot of people had an opportunity to like learn from CTV shows. I mean, the fact that we're able to utilize public television or a public avenue to even educate people on different ways of viewing issue, it gives people more freedom and choice and liberation.
Now, Bobby has told me before the show started earlier today that she believes that the whole idea that we should preclude roll-in material, that's longer than 30 seconds that is copyrighted, even though we give them attribution and we're completely non-commercial. We could even say we're educational, that this is a review, it's cultural commentary, these items are themselves newsworthy items. Yes. Mm-hmm. Even though we do that, rather than now saying we should stop it, which is our current policy as of our last meeting that we had, that we should just go ahead rather than self-censoring. We should go ahead and do what we've done, even though it may preclude us from having the wider audience that we might desire to have in national YouTube, where it gets brought down. If it survives and goes on to the local GRTV site, that we should just be satisfied with that.
Well,
is that accurate?
Yeah, I agree.
Our viewership on YouTube, which is 7 viewers at most usually, and
Well,
but this is
it
our
depends, yeah.
this is our avenue. This is our main avenue right here at GRTV, and we should cater right now to this. When we do become 100%, if it ever happens, YouTube, then we'll follow the YouTube rules. But right now, we only have to follow the public access rules, in my opinion. And so far, we have. So that's what I think.
Well,
I mean,
perhaps-
our media gets saved onto YouTube, and in the future, there's so many different ways of viewing media. I mean, everything from the TV to the YouTube user, and
Well, perhaps next time we have a meeting, we can bring this up again and discuss whether or not we should leave it up to the individual producer, whether to continue with the old policy or to cater to national YouTube on this.
And I think we've been censoring some of our producers way too much anyway. I think it was always about whoever the moderator's was opinion. I don't agree with everybody's opinion in the group. Otherwise, we'd all be a bunch of
well, we wouldn't have the
zombies.
show.
Yeah, we wouldn't have a show. We wouldn't have anything to discuss. Agreed. And I think the more open and free we are with what we talk about on the show, the better. Just because a couple people don't agree, then maybe they don't need to be in the group if they don't agree with what it is, rather than kicking people out of the group because they don't agree with them. That's how I feel. I don't know.
Well, I agree, because if when it's saved to the website of CTV, it's always going to be there. I mean, the whole point is that we don't censor ourselves. I mean, I utilize a lot of media that isn't mainstream per se, but it's media that people want to share on the internet. I mean, I need to use those clips. I need I need a lot at my fingertips with doing activism with immigration. I need lots of access to lots of different types of media. And I guess if YouTube chooses to ban it, I don't really care. I mean, of course I care, but I mean, it shouldn't shape
stop me from my opinion.
Yeah, it shouldn't stop my way I want to direct a show because somebody else may censor me.
To be fair, our shows do vary in terms of the viewership. Viewership has overall, on national YouTube been going down steadily, and certainly GRTV's audience itself has been impacted by the changes. It's in the media landscape. The viewership, obviously, of cable TV, of GRTV itself, has declined a great deal. But having said all that, I guess I agree that we should give the individual producers that opportunity. We can review our policy.
We can still play it on Facebook. We can still play it if we had a website. We could put it on our own website, and whatever we'd want to do with that. If we had a blog, we could put it on our blog. Just letting YouTube dictate what we want to show is actually bowing down to them.
Well, it's only one avenue.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I don't. I have a Blu-ray player that's you can hook up to the internet, and about 2 years ago, it stopped letting me even view YouTube on it. My parents, who have Google boxes, which own YouTube, they have a thing that says right there on their screen. It says as of June 12th, I think, they're no longer going to have access to YouTube on their Google boxes. So people aren't going to be even, because they want you to buy more new products and everything like that. And so it's just another censoring mechanism to stop the poor people from watching TV and figuring out what you want to watch and figure out having a mind of your own by watching what you want to watch on TV. They want you to watch what they want you to watch. They want you to watch Netflix and all these other ones that you have to pay for, where YouTube is free. So if you're going to be watching something for free, well, then we're going to make you buy a new device. We're going to get money out of you somehow. That's how I see it.
Well, I have seen the show make its way around the world. I've spent a lot of time following threads and finding out where our show has ended up. And for a couple years, our show was carried on someone's site that was called Reality TV, which was in the Netherlands. And there was CTV, and
Cool.
they had quite a few of our episodes up. I've seen it on some kind of Indian Pakistani peace site, and I couldn't get it. I mean, I was able to kind of figure out from some parts of it that were in English that that's what it was, but I couldn't get a translation. And then it was there were pages and pages of commentary and some stills of our show, screen captures that were in Chinese, and I couldn't get a translation to tell me exactly where they were located or what they were saying, but I found out. Also, our show was sitting around on someone's site in West Bengal for quite a while. So
wow,
it
that's
does
amazing.
make its way around. It hasn't been a huge audience, but I have to say that sometimes shows have had hundreds of YouTube hits. And certainly, Pablo Bello's shows have been very popular. Pablo, local Hispanic journalist here in Grand Rapids with a journalism degree from Wayne State. He's been quite successful in his combination with CTV. His show became part of our CTV operation, although it started completely independently. And he's had thousands of views, but he's unique in that he's liberal to left-leaning, and the show's in Spanish, and it's local, and so that has made a big difference.
I would agree. Like
so
there's
he's hit a
very
niche.
there's very few outlets in especially the Latino community / Hispanic with options to hearing other points of view. It's either direct news with no slant left or right, and then there is a whole bunch to the right, and then there's not much else.
Right.
You have very little to choose from, so at least in this community. So, I mean, I would see why people these days are trying to customize their menu of what they want to see and hear about. I mean, the nice thing is about cable TV, but again, you need lots of money to have more choices. I'm able to listen as long as I wish to for things from a conservative point of view. About 10 minutes of Fox News, I get what they're trying to say. I can only handle it for a few moments of my time, but I definitely appreciate now the choices and more freedoms I have to shape my world and what I take in.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't have to spend, I feel I'm wasting my life if I have to. I mean, I'm open to listen to other people's music, but I don't want to do it for hours on end.
When you already know what you like.
Yeah.
This brings me back to the idea, my particular vision on CTV, past, present, future, and that is that I still have my biggest interest probably is convincing people of an argument rather than reinforcing people in an opinion that they already have. And so I like the idea of presenting material from the right, talking about it and talking about the problems with it, and trying to bring people from the right in the direction toward the left. I'm much more interested in doing that and appealing to the wider audience in that way than communicating with other left-wingers about how much further to the left we need to go.
Isn't that what most politicians do? Is they try to stay as centralist as possible, so
They
they can eventually win as many from both sides as possible.
In that way, it's a vision of TV as a political argument. And so that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worthwhile. I guess the biggest part of my personality is just like praying, please. Maybe if these people, can shape an opinion besides just having, those are my rights to share my thoughts and my opinions. When people finally get facts. Agreed. I always think, maybe you would see things from this angle if only you felt like you had facts. But I'm finding over and over again, people just say, well, that's my right.
I feel this way.
I feel this way.
Yeah.
But the problem is, why should your feelings outweigh real facts that are not myths about people?
Which is a very currently hot topic, the whole idea of fake news, or that we're living in a post-factual world or whatever.
Yes.
Or these are post-fact facts and things. All these statements about, really, these are statements about this climate that we've just been talking about, where people convince themselves even more of opinions that they already have, and they choose to view the things that have already put them in their way of
Well,
looking
you
at
know,
things.
the argument I often hear from the right is, well, everyone is able to have an opinion, and that's why America is so great, because we all get the right to express ourselves. And then I say, well, yeah, I mean, that's great that we all get to express ourselves, but when you want to hold opinions at the same level, and one is based entirely on fact and science, and one is just because someone feels that way, why should this opinion carry more weight than this one? Or, you know, vice versa. I mean, I don't think that just because someone feels a certain way, it should be of equal value as someone who's taken the time to put real facts and research behind their fact-based opinion. I mean,
well, it's something that is interesting. I mean, since we've been doing CTV so long, that I can see at this point is that the presentation of unusual facts that are still facts, but they fly in the face of what the common opinion about what facts are, has become something that is now self-verifiable in the internet. I mean, if you use the internet well, I think that you can use it as an investigative tool, as a kind of self-journalism.
Yes,
absolutely.
but one of the things that are like glaringly obvious is that there is what you call reliable sources of information.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see conservatives recognizing places that are supported by foundations that have
Right.
no political ties. These are the places like Pew Research Center. That's definitely like has verifiable facts that are really clear and consistent. Now, when conservatives argue their point, their right to have an opinion, and it should weigh as much as your facts do, I see people like running to sites that are still more opinion-based than fact-based, and then they kind of shape their feelings around what they think a fact is. And you know, and I feel that hinders people getting education that's even correct. I mean, so you have people out there creating literally their own facts, which are not based on anything more than, you know,
the more it's repeated on the internet, the more it's believed by people as well.
Yeah, and it just creates a cycle of ignorance, and then we have people, it's like, you know, the emperor has no clothes suddenly, you know.
Well, in terms of the emperor having
Absolutely.
no clothes, I think that the small number of major media outlets that used to be so extremely dominant up until not too long ago meant that so much that was factual got left behind, and there was a perpetuation of a kind of myth world where you know, I like to say that we live in a massively falsified world. That's been one of my internal mini-series on this program. And what I mean by that is that the myth of, you know, America as this middle-class society, the wealthiest country in the world, you know, social mobility, that you can pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and all that,
Right,
really
some
flies
people-
in the
yeah.
face of this country that has third world level access to medical care for maybe most people, according to the UN.
And
where
food.
there's third
Education's
world
up
levels
there.
of child mortality, infant mortality,
Yes.
where most children in the US are actually living below the poverty line. So that's over 50%, you know, and that's been rising for years. Educational attainment is down. And no, the standard of living for most people is going down. The very wealthiest have become incredibly wealthy. And for a while, middle levels rose as well, but you know, that has slowed down and reversed itself also clearly. And so, I mean, the hollowness of what was portrayed by the media world in the past has become something that most people see through at this point. I think what I wanted to use CTV for was to punch holes in, the false media sort of wall that was there and talk about the reality of the changes that were taking place in society that are now entirely obvious. And I think what we see at this point is that that's not such an amazing, the idea that we're living in a massively falsified world is something that maybe most Americans agree with now, but they're not exactly sure what world we are living in. In fact, you have all sorts of splinterings of the opinion of what that world is. And in fact, as you said, people are going off into these opinion verses that are not necessarily places where they think that they need to actually verify real facts for themselves.
Similar to Brave New World we're living in.
What's this?
We're similar to the Brave New World that we're living in, where everyone's just on drugs and just trying to ignore the fact of reality and just trying to get along, go along type mentality.
We're living in a weird world where the white country people, the hillbillies and the small town people in Kansas are on drugs, and their children are doing heroin. And this used to be a inner city kind of strange thing that was a part of the world that was never going to be a part of this sort of middle world that was.
So when you guys
solid,
talk about
it's not solid anymore.
people on drugs, can you clarify that?
Sure. Well, you can start out with the prescription ones,
Okay.
where seems like every third kid is diagnosed with ADHD in school, and they're putting them on medication so that they can fit into society. Well, they are society. We should be reshaping school so it fits them, not reshaping them to fit school. And like Mark was saying, there's a really big heroin epidemic going on right now, but I think, and it happens to be with a lot of teenagers to young adults.
Yeah.
But the number one killer of white, male, mid-age, middle class, the number one killer is prescription medication.
Wow.
It's not heart disease anymore. It's not cancer anymore. It's overdosing on prescription painkillers.
I think.
Oh, wow.
I think young people have come to see, many young people in the U.S., maybe most, that we kind of live in a no future world. There's not really a way of building much of a life for yourself. Not really.
So the people want to hide.
Different. Yeah. So people choose very momentary, present moment things to try and alleviate the understanding that they have that there's no real future to build in a nation in decline.
Oh my gosh, I totally disagree though.
Well, why do you disagree?
Well, I feel like I came from extreme poverty, everything from digging in the garbage to find toys. I picked things out of the dump. I had a knife to cut bags open. I lived very, very, very poor. I did not my parents didn't pay to relocate me to a city. No one in my family had higher education. And I feel that I have a lot of hope for the future. And the government has been more of something that has stood in my way. But, I think of words from Angela Davis that are like, I no longer accept the things I cannot change. I'm changing what I cannot accept. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to have, a middle class lifestyle where I could go on a vacation and have more economic wealth than my parents did. But I didn't really know how I was going to get there. And so, I didn't have the opportunity to go to college and get a 4-year degree. So, I had to teach myself and have friends help me. I had to improve everything from my reading, and I do feel hopeful, and that hope came from like aspiring to things that didn't just matter economically, but just seeing that mobilizing and grassroots effort does create change in the world, and that makes me feel hopeful. And economically, I learned that if I could be frugal enough, I mean, wages were like a lot. It seems like wages 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, were more plentiful than they are now.
Oh,
I mean,
that's a fact.
I think I made like double what people are making now. That did allow me to like get ahead more, but I've also like learned that there's ways in third world countries that people are able to get ahead. It's not easy, but now I've learned why people live communally together. It cuts down your housing expenses, so you have more money. I was able to have more of the life I wanted to have. I was able to, go on a vacation because I wasn't spending all my money on housing or all my money on expenses. So now I feel like I get to buy the things I want to buy. But, my sacrifice came, and it wasn't like really a sacrifice. I got to hear different views from different people living communally, and a lot of times that's how people are pulling themselves out of poverty. But you literally have to give up a lot of privacy as a human being. I mean, there's always a cost to everything, But I just think it's there can be hope, but I think it depends like on each individual person.
I think a lot more people are actually living communally, but not by choice. And I think when they get stuck doing something not by choice, they get a little pissed off.
Yeah, very angry. So, yeah.
Well, we haven't. We've talked about the past and present of CTV, but we really haven't talked about the future at this point, which is where I'd like to shift the conversation. I've talked about this with members of the Society for Economic Equality, the producers of CTV, and one thing I've heard from Stephen Durst is that we should be more like the bloggers, the people who have vlogs, video blogs, the people who get lots of YouTube hits nationally, who are using a completely different format, actually just kind of talking right into the camera, kind of at close range. And so very minimalistic, not really the old TV world at all, and much shorter clips. And they still may be doing analysis, but they're not really bringing in video elements as we have done, with our traditional CTV format, and that's the way to go. And if we do use video, use activist, self-gathered video, perhaps that kind of thing. And especially he emphasized the adjusting to the shorter attention span, like even 5-10 minute pieces, half-hour pieces, none of this hour-long commentary and analysis anymore.
It's not really, some of these shows are half hour and an hour long, but they break it up in a way that makes it seem like they're watching a different show constantly. They'll change a camera angle, or they'll do an interview with somebody. Rather than have all three panelists, they'll do a quick little 10-minute segment with one person, and then I would leave, and then you would do 10-minute one-on-one with Cindy or something like that. That's my daughter watches these shows nonstop all day long, and there's all different kind of formats. But I think really the main one that kind of sticks is what Jon Stewart used to do. Is he would sit there and have his first 15-minute rant. Then he sometimes would have a roll-in or something, and then kind of mock it or something, because he had the more of a comedy angle. But he would do an interview with somebody, either about a book or about a movie they're doing or something. I mean, we wouldn't have to get movie stars, but we could talk about a book we read and say that this is, or we could talk about a movie we watched rather than actually showing it, something like that. I saw a documentary about such and such thing, and this is how I think that our society is moving. We could do in depth in that way, I think.
What do you think, Cindy? What would the future of CTV be? How do you
I just
see
think it should be like really open to the person, the format they would like to pick. I mean,
Well, that's what we've always done. Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, but continue to like utilize different avenues of media, whether it's just doing video blogs or, I think it's up to, because we are a group of volunteers, Society for Economic Equality, I think a lot of it is up to how much people want to volunteer their time to do it. So, but I think that when you direct a show, you can decide if you want to put it on Facebook or YouTube, or do you want to?
Do you want to cut it up into?
Do you want to like take
afterward?
or you can take your show and cut it every 10 minutes and have 5 or 6 different topics. I mean,
I think so too.
You can pick and do it however you want. I mean, that's the best part about this. You can discuss the topic you want to, you can bring in the points of view you want to, and you can simply put it on the type of media you want to.
One thing that has allowed the group to continue that we probably don't want to destroy is that since we have individual content producers being entirely in charge of their own content, I think this allowed the group to exist because you didn't have arguments over content or ideological purity and we have had minimal administrative headaches. If we end up with a situation where we're mandating a kind of format.
If we had to have a meeting to decide what every single show was going to be, we would never have a show.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I have to say,
decentralization has allowed the group to survive.
I think so.
I mean, we have a crew structure that basically is the thing that we're all concerned with. Other than that, we speak to one another, and individual content producers who are members have complete freedom to decide what their own content is going to be, and the central organization doesn't interfere with that. We are we still have more than 10 minutes left in the show. It is a call-in show. We haven't heard from you, but as we've discussed, the audience has declined since the whole change in the media landscape that's taken place that we've already talked about. 459-4881, there's the call-in number. This is the 17th of May, so you see it's the 17th of May down there.
2017.
So, you can call in. This is live, and hope to hear from you if at all possible.
We have the ability, like when you see on a TV show where they put a screen right here and you can just watch it.
Oh, yeah.
But we do have the capability with
We've
the
done that. We have had some virtual sets going on.
You can watch a roll-in right here next to you.
We haven't done that.
No, but they have the capability to do that.
Well, that's another thing. We have fantastic technological capability here.
Not necessarily know how to use it.
Certainly professional level, but it is. It's kind of at the edge or beyond the edge of our capacity of our membership to handle often, and so our excellent GRTV staff have helped us to do some of this, but it is a challenge. And of course, you see sometimes things don't work, the roll-in doesn't come up, or the sound isn't quite right, or there's no sound, but that's part of GRTV, limited funding. And people who don't do this for a living and only come in twice a month to do something aren't necessarily always going to be able to present the kind of high production values that you might.
Well, we all got to learn somewhere at some time if we want to learn it.
Well, I've always thought that it's the content that is primary, and so the rest of it is secondary. And as long as we can get the main message across, that's what's truly important.
I think that's what everybody wants to do, get their message across. The idea is like, who has the best strategy?
Yeah, how are we supposed to make people listen to our message?
Yeah.
Our content, how are they going to?
I think we might actually, I don't know how appropriate this is, but as the baby boomer generation gets moving, there might be more people in bed finding themselves with just local TV.
That's true.
If they lose their Obamacare. Yeah.
There's
Then
that.
they might be subject to our
They'll be stuck only watching us.
watching us.
Because they
Yes.
have to save money somewhere.
Yes. So, don't let your legislator vote against your health care coverage, or you could be seeing us all the time.
Or people just like us.
So, yeah.
Those are great thoughts, though.
I always, I guess depending on, I personally do enjoy life a little more. Hanging out with like-minded people, it's very refreshing, and I love it. And it is very, very difficult for me, when you talked about having to listen to other points of view. It's great when it's a TV and you can turn it on and turn it off as soon as you're done listening.
Absolutely.
When you get in those very close quarters of people that totally nothing is eye to eye. We're talking not even fashion, haircuts, jewelry, but complete ideology. I'm like, just kill me right now. When I feel like forced to be subject to that, where there's no off button.
Oh.
I mean, I have to say, family gatherings are like that for me.
Ditto.
I mean, I just, sometimes it's hard for me to sit there and even want to know that, these people right here have a pure hatred for stuff that I love and stand for.
Agreed. I have that.
It's very
similar
uncomfortable. Have you had that experience, Mark?
with your family or with anybody.
Or
I guess.
a work situation,
My
if
family
you
tends to, work. Well, work was the school system, for years, and there was no discussing, politics. Occasionally people would recognize me from the days when our audience was larger, and before I started wearing my hat and glasses, they'd go, "Oh, you're that guy," or the kids would go, "Oh, you've been in some movies or something." I'm like, "No." But what would I say about family? Well, in my family, they're liberals, except for my older brother, and he's a right-wing Republican, but he won't talk about it.
He knows to keep it to himself.
Yeah, so if I ask him, his opinion, it's kind of like I'm prying or something, but I have come to realize that he's a right-wing Republican. And my mom says, well, that's because he has money, and he's for people with money, and he wants to keep his own money.
Sure.
And so that's how he sees it. It's
Or
all
people
very
who think they have
self-oriented.
money.
Yeah.
I mean, people think that if they have a couple $1,000s in the bank that they have money, but they don't realize, but you're $200,000 in debt because you just bought a house, another $20,000 in debt because you bought a car, but they've got, $5,000 in savings. They think that they have money, but they're really worse off than the average person who can't afford a house, because if they ever lost their job, they'd be screwed.
Well, that was probably a reason for high suicide rates when the market started to drop out of the housing market. As a real estate agent, I realized that's a capitalist style job, but I like to tell people, yes, I realize I engage in capitalism to make a living. However, I do have a conscience. So, I'm capitalism with a conscience. So, I don't know if, some people might say that's an oxymoron, but, I really try to, not try. I actually stay ethical, I feel, in my line of work. And, it does allow me probably more exposure than I would prefer to many other people that think a lot differently, because there are people that feel like, well, I have my money and I'm good, and so I want to stay with people for tax breaks and more money. And then I'm like, well, yeah, but the United States can't continue to grow at a healthy level if all the people on the bottom that you want to make all your money off aren't going to have any money to spend. So, if we can't get money into the hands of people that are in below poverty, the cycle cannot exist.
The U.S. economy is not growing. It's stagnant, or considering population increases, it's a shrinking economy, and has been for many years.
And when you keep restricting who can purchase real estate or get mortgages for that, And the more the housing availability rates for people being able to purchase a home, when people buy houses and get into debt, like you say, they buy stoves, refrigerators, new paint.
Absolutely.
That generates so many.
More jobs.
That to me is what drives the economy.
It is.
And
it's a fact.
So when I have like people working full time at Walmart and they can't buy a house off that, and then I hear from. Sometimes legislators that say, well, it should be okay to pay people whatever they want to. We want to pay them.
We're going to have to wrap things up.
Okay.
This has been CTV, OSA Can You See series. It's been going on for 22 years.
Oh, wow.
I would just like to say that, CTV used to distribute tapes. This show was seen on cable access in Peoria, Waterloo, Iowa. It was being shown in Boulder, Colorado. It was for several years shown in Kalamazoo and in Lansing.
Oh,
and
wow.
We were hearing that we were famous, from the people who were carrying us locally. And the thing is that society has changed so much that the views that we've espoused all these years have now been carried forth by even a presidential candidate in the last election. Bernie Sanders, would have shared a lot of our views about moving society in a more socialistic direction. So things have changed a great deal. I mean, things have split apart and gone, way right, and some people would say way left, but majority, things that we used to say that were considered astoundingly bizarre are really not considered to be from outer space anymore.
No.
So
Doesn't it just seem like either you're for humanity or you're for capitalism?
We're going bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you for watching. Those of you who may see us or maybe bring us in on YouTube or wherever. And this show comes to you the first, the third, and the fifth Wednesday of every month here on GRTV in Grand Rapids. And we're rerun every Tuesday, 7 p.m. To 8 p.m. And the live show, when it happens, is 6 to 7 p.m. And if you're watching right now, you know that.
No.
Yes.
I mean,
7 to 8.
7 to 8 p.m. sorry.
Peace, love, and joy.
Are we still on? Are we coming up with our credits yet? I think maybe, there we go. Yes, our credits. And at the end of our credits, you'll see our scrolling manifesto, which we work on together. Can we get credits? Can we get our manifesto running? What? It's not working?
And people can look on YouTube anytime and check out all of our reruns and see if they can find them.
Fun works? Oh, there we go. Well, even if we go off, we should let the credits and the manifesto run completely through for YouTube purposes, for posterity of the tape, okay? Final sentence?
I think there's a piece of CCTV if we can get it.
And that's a challenge.